What is up, light beams? This episode of The Know is brought to you by Cinderfit. In case you missed it, I started using Cinderfit blocks in my workouts, and I am absolutely loving them. Cinderfit is a design-oriented fitness brand based in Miami, 305, what it do, and they have created these awesome, versatile, weighted, and very chic Cinder blocks that are a super asset to any gym or home workout. I can't wait to tell you all about my experience with them mid-episode, and you already know you are going to be able to use my unique promo code NikkiSpo when you check out at www.cinderfit.com. Thanks to Sana Skin Studio for supporting the Know podcast. Sana is a skin studio that is shifting the relationship with your skin and your products through goal-driven facials, real guidance, and clean skincare. Stay tuned for our promo code so you can receive $25 off of your first facial at Sana Skin Studio. Welcome to the Know podcast with me, Nikki Spo. What is up, truth speakers and light seekers? It is your podcast bestie, Nikki Spo here, and you are listening to The Know, where it's not about knowing everything, it's about knowing ourselves. Today's guest is someone I've worked with in the past, particularly at the start of last year, which was one of the hardest years of my life, to help me gain some clarity on the direction of my life and the direction I wanted for my life. I've been so lucky through the years to attract soul teachers, women of magic, and women of knowing into my orbit. Last year, today's guest, Nikki Novo, reminded me that healing is gnarly. A lot of people think it's full of bliss and enlightenment and all this, and while it is and it can be, the path can also sometimes be hellish. Nikki Novo is a Cuban-American bestselling author and master intuitive reader with a waitlist exceeding 1,000 people. And she is the founder of Soul Reading Method, a certification program where she has taught more than 1,300 students how to activate their own intuitive abilities. Nikki Novo is the go-to spiritual advisor for the biggest names in the wellness industry and a leader in the spiritual Latinx community. Dedicated to helping people remember their true soulless path, Nikki has been featured on Oprah Daily, Well and Good, Cosmo, Bustle, Marie Claire, NBC, and Telemundo, as well as on popular podcasts like Almost 30, Balance Blonde, and Highest Self podcast. When she is not leading the way for people to connect with their hearts and souls, Nikki is most likely enjoying nature on her 30-acre farm alongside her husband, teen daughter, rambunctious sons, and their farm animals. Nikki Novo believes in living a soul-led life, meaning that we are able to hear, connect, and understand our essence. For Nikki Novo, developing her intuition allowed her to develop more trust in herself and in all of her decisions. Today, Nikki Novo is going to teach us how we can tap into our self-trust and build our own sense of intuition. Let's get started. I met you last year through one of my best friends and former guest on the show, Jamie Lee Ruiz, when I was going through some really tough transitions in my life. You are an intuitive healer. You're a coach. You lead workshops. How did you get into this type of intuitive work? What were you doing? What were you doing before this? And how did you get here?
It's funny that I'm intuitive because I would have never guessed that I would be here. And so that's kind of funny because, I grew up in Miami just like you, to Catholic Cuban parents. I was raised Catholic. I went to a Catholic high school, and I was just, I don't know, I was just always taught to follow the rules and all those things. And I went to school. I fell in love with entertainment and media. So I actually studied public relations. I lived in Los Angeles. I worked in the film industry, and I became an editor, eventually a fashion and beauty editor. And that was my life. But like so many people, I was having a spiritual awakening, despite all this world that I lived in. I was dating this guy, and like most relationships that go south, that was a big part of my awakening. I was dating this guy, and I never defined myself as intuitive. I don't think that word was even in my lexicon, but I always followed my heart. I knew, I was engaged very young, and I called off the wedding 2 months before. I just kind of if I was off path, I always knew to find my path. And what happened was that in my mid-20s, I was dating this guy, and it felt very on path. I felt very much my intuition brought me here in a way. I almost even God led me here. So in my mind, I thought that that meant we were going to be together and get married and have kids and all these things. And out of nowhere, he breaks up with me. So I don't know if you've ever felt that before. when you were like, wait, like I thought that like the actual intuition and because there's times that like we make mistakes or that we fall off path, but we were like, we knew it, you know, like we weren't really like listening to ourselves. We missed the red flags, all that kind of stuff. That was like not the case here. This was the opposite. This was like, I felt like this was divine. And then out of nowhere, it fell apart. I don't know if that's happened to you before. And then you started losing trust in your intuition. You're like, wait, what was that thing that guided me here? And how did I get it wrong?
How did I get it wrong? Yes, I ask myself that a lot. When you think your intuition is leading you to the right place.
Right.
But then it like smacks you and you're like, haha, psych. And you're like, how? I thought this was my intuition guiding me.
Exactly, which is a scary thing. And actually that moment is what led me to really want to understand my intuition, because I never like, again, I didn't have the word for it, but I didn't have any need to doubt it because I just kind of understood it as follow your heart. And like when you follow your heart, everything works out. It's kind of like what in my mind, what I was understanding. But when this guy who I loved a lot dumped me out of nowhere, and at the same time, I was already like learning some spiritual stuff because I was super interested because I was raised Catholic. And once I was like outside of that bubble, I had so many questions. So I was like reading a bunch. And one of the things I had stumbled upon was soulmates. So the concept that and people use that word all the time, right? Like my soulmate, I want to find my soulmate, all that kind of stuff. And I was learning that like soulmates are these people that we have lived other lifetimes with. And I got into like past lives and all that. So I was already like interested. This was already in my space. So I thought this person was a soulmate. And when that didn't work, I had so many questions. So this actually led me to my first ever psychic. Well, actually a string of psychics, because I grew up Catholic and I really thought that I was going to get like struck by lightning or my mom was going to like pop out of a closet when I was, you know, visiting a psychic. So I never went there. Like I never tried to go see a psychic. But I was in this place and I reconnected with like an old girlfriend of mine who I knew from high school, but had lost touch, whatever. And she was just like more of a rebel. And when I was telling her this problem, I was like, I really wish I could like visit a psychic. She was like, I got you, girl. Like she was like, it was like the black market. Like Lily knew all like the black market psychics. So she like takes me on this like crazy, like it was like we might as well have been buying drugs, I swear to God, because she like takes me, it was like dark and we were like in her BMW and it was like a dark night, like 9:00. We drive to like some sketchy part of town and like you got to like knock on the door to like tell the psychic you're there, and then you get back in your car and then she'll like let you know to come in through the side. I was like, what is happening? This is why my mom told me not to go see a psychic.
By the way, Nikki, my first experience visiting a psychic was very similar. I was like, hold up, where the hell am I? Like, I was like, what's happening?
Like before you know it, you're sitting on some like lady's like plastic patio furniture on the side of her house. You know?
Yeah. But she was the shit. My girl was really good.
Yeah, no, they are, you know, but it was like, I didn't know what to expect, right? So I see this woman and it ended up being like the worst thing ever. She was very accurate, but at some point in the reading, she tells me, she's like, I know your problem. And I'm like, oh, you know that if you don't end up with this person, you'll never be happy. Like, I was like, what? And she's like, yeah, you're meant to be with this person. If you guys don't end up together, you will never find happiness. I was like, what? And then at the end of the reading, of course, she tried to sell me some like healing, some like despojo to like clean my energy, whatever. And I was really heartbroken by this. And my friend Lily, of course, was like, oh no, what did I just do? I was like crying, sobbing. Like I knew it. Like this person was my soulmate and I messed it up. And like now, you know, all this stuff. So I didn't give up there. We ended up finding like another person that did angel readings. And I thought that felt like a little bit more safe to me. I was like, okay, there's angels in the Bible. Like maybe this lady is not going to tell me anything bad. I guess I was just looking for somebody to tell me something good, you know, also. So I find this woman and she was amazing and she was completely accurate. And she was like, get over that guy. Like, this is not going to happen. She's like, I see all these things for you. She predicted my husband like 2 years before I actually met him. All these things. And at the end of the reading, she's like, you're not going to want to hear this, but you're about to get into the metaphysical. And I'm like, what the hell is the metaphysical? Like, I was like, it just sounded like wizard to me. And I was like, oh my gosh, like my life is really falling apart. Like, I'm not with this guy.
No, my life is falling apart. I'm going to get into the metaphysical. What the F?
I was like a fashion, and at the time I was the editor of like a really fancy, like, publication. And like for this lady to tell me in her place, like to tell me that I was getting into the metaphysicals, I was like, oh no, like what does this mean? So she was correct. And she ended up, and then another weird thing about that reading was at the end of the reading, I looked at her and I said, do you think I could do what you do? Like, I don't know why I asked that question, but I was wondering basically, like, was she born intuitive or can anybody be intuitive was kind of like my question. She was definitely born intuitive and like was kind of out there since she was young. But she was so kind and she told me like, yes, like anybody can be intuitive. And that was very like expansive for me because I think, and I'm sure you probably feel the same way, Nikki, like I think mediums, psychics, intuitives have always been seen, number one, as weird. And number two, as like you're born that way. Like these are people that are
not real.
Yeah. Or they're like predicting their grandfather's death. And like they've had these weird, things that you can't relate to. And I didn't have any of those experiences growing up because if I would have come and told my mom that there was like an angel in my bed, she would have for sure sent me to like Canada to live with some nuns until like the devil left my body. So that was like not an option for me, And she gave me a book about how to hear your angels by this woman, Doreen Virtue, who was like an angel expert. And it was like, really funny things. It was like, it sounded like I was supposed to be talking to like the tooth fairy. Like in the book, it said, like, write a little note to your angel and put it under your pillow when you're sleeping and you'll get an answer.
Wait, are you like rolling your eyes like, okay.
Yes.
Okay, I got to give this a try because my life is falling apart.
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. I was definitely like doing it at night. And I had all these like weird, like woo-woo books underneath my bed. And I would tell my roommate, who was also an editor at the time, I'd be like, listen, if I get in a fucking car accident, the first thing you're going to do, like, you're not even going to cry for me. You are not going to grieve for me. You're going to go under my bed and you are going to burn all the scary metaphysical books that I have. You're going to make sure nobody knows that I had that secret. Cause it was like a secret. Like, it was like, God forbid, I did not want anybody to know what I was doing, but she knew because she lived with me. I was doing it just to see, like, I had nothing to lose at that point, right, Nikki? Like, I was already at this place that like life was so weird at that point. And it was like working. It was so weird. Like it just started to work, like, signs and like all these things. And then, I won't bore you with the rest, but basically I went down this rabbit hole, which I was scared to go down because I thought I was single at the time. And I was like, if I go down this rabbit hole, I'm going to become very weird and nobody's going to want to marry me. And like, this is going to be a problem. But I kept going. So I like kept my day life. Like I just kind of, like kept that facade, whatever. And then I was doing this on the side, like just studying basically. And what happened was that like I learned, I did a bunch of certifications. I did like Reiki and like this other one called Theta Healing. And once I got into those, I started to have these like visions basically. And I started to see spirit guides, which was very strange for me. So if you don't know what a spirit guide is, guys, it's basically, you've probably like maybe categorized it as like, maybe you felt like an angel watching over you, or even like a past loved one, like your grandmother watching over you. So those are types of spirit guides, and spirit guides can
protected at times. Like I can't explain it, but I felt like, okay, I'm being protected right now.
Yes.
But I can't explain it. And I can't identify who or what or why or how. Right. I just have had a feeling of protection before.
Yeah, I think a lot of us have felt that. We would probably bucket that into like guardian angels, like the, kind of just feeling protected. So, but beyond that, you can actually like communicate like with them. Wow. And kind of like, and that if you believe in the concept that we have lived many lives, which I had already believed at that point, like I had been studying that. I read a lot of Dr. Brian Weiss's books. I started to believe that in past lives because even just that guy that I dated, like I knew that person. Like I felt this knowing when I met him. And I've felt that with girlfriends too, not just with guys, right? That like, I know this person. I have done, when you have children, there are just some of your kids, you're like, motherfucker, he's back for round 3. Like we've done this again.
Nikki, that like I've known Eric for ever. Like, I know
Forever.
that's, I know it even sounds woo-woo coming out of my mouth, but I'm like, I've known him. Like, I know
Yeah.
him. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know
And
how I've
that's
known
why
him, but
it
I
gets
know
more
him. There's a reason,
complicated.
right? And I know that there's a reason how, like, he found his way to Miami from Oregon, like, and ended up on my doorstep,
I
like
have
there's,
full body goosebumps, like full
yeah,
body.
like, and I know it. And I know that, like, the 16 years that we were together, that, like, there were lessons that I had to learn that I truly believe that were from a previous experience with him. Like, I'm
Yes.
sharing this with, like, the listeners to give context about what Nikki is talking about, that I think that we all have some of this in us, whether we're paying attention to it or not, right? Like, but to your point about, like, knowing somebody, I'm like, oh, my soul knows you
Yeah.
already. I can't explain it necessarily, but I'm like, I know you. I know
Yeah.
you. So when
Yeah.
I met Eric, I was like, I know you. You're
Exactly.
familiar. I know exactly who you are. Even if, like, I couldn't identify it, right? Or, like, really put it into words or an explanation that made sense.
Well, I think without like knowing this like metaphysical stuff that I ended up studying, I mean, we don't have the words for it. So I'm just like you. I've always felt those way. I just like, I needed to know the language, and that's how I got into this. But that is, I think we all, and like what you're explaining about the relationship. Yeah. So like in the work that I do now, I do these readings, I can find people's like soul's purpose. And so many people come with what we call karmic relationship purpose. And like what's hard with them is that like until these karmic patterns are not like cleared out or fulfilled, their true purpose like is not able, they're not able to like fully live into it. So
Holy
it's that. Yes.
Holy shit, goosebump moment. Wait. Break
Yes.
that down for us, please, because
Yeah.
that is major. That is major.
The idea is that we have a soul's purpose, right? Like your soul came here, has something to do, has a few things it wants to do this lifetime. Like it's a little, to-do list.
Yep.
And so people will feel like, man, I really like have something big to do. I've been trying to do this thing for a long time. It's not working. I don't know what's happening. And what's happening is that their purpose, like, will not, there's no space for their purpose until they've like cleaned out the garbage, basically. There is these tasks before, which are super annoying, and they're usually karmic relationships, which means that we are like kind of caught up in these like webs and these patterns with different people. So like when you see somebody like you, Nikki, like mother passes away, like relationship, coming to an end, that is such a sign that you have closed out these like very long old contracts, and that like a lot of what you've been trying to do will not be able, like has not been able, like it didn't matter how hard you tried the last 10 years or whatever, like until those lessons were complete. Because basically the idea of a karmic relationship is that I have lived other lifetimes with these people, and I have been in the same pattern. We like this bullshit that we keep doing. You think you're annoyed about it this lifetime? It's like you've been doing it for like 7 lifetimes. So there's an extra annoyance to you. So you're stuck in a very sticky pattern. And until like the lesson is really learned. So for example, for me with that guy, like it was such a catalyst, like for me to go here, to actually like find my intuition, to like become myself. And I was in a pattern with him for a very long time. And it wasn't until I was like, oh, I'm supposed to step into my power here. Like we've been doing this thing for so long. I've been giving you my power for so many lifetimes. And now that I step into it, everything started to open up.
And like that things then become easy. They make sense. Like it's not like, it's not such an effort for the things to fall together.
Exactly. Like our lives should have a little bit of like a miraculous kind of like flow, signs happening. Like it should have a little bit of that, like I know life is challenging and hard and there's outside exteriors, but there should be a little bit of a like, oh, I'm trying to work towards this and it kind of happens. And if it doesn't, and if it's not, there is like some sort of like web that we're stuck in that needs to be detangled. And a lot of it has to do with the way we're showing up in our relationships. I got really interested in that. The spirit guide started to come to me. And actually, even like that girl from my roommate that I mentioned earlier, her mother had passed away of cancer way before I met my friend. And like one day we were out to dinner. I didn't know her yet. I was just like getting to know her. We were work friends before we became roommates. And like that, I was just talking to her. I go into the bathroom by myself, and all of a sudden I hear this like voice, like this. I don't even know how to explain it. It was not my voice. It's not like, I always say it's not like Mufasa's voice from The Lion King. It's like, I was like, great. I drank too much wine. I'm like fucked up. I'm hearing voices. I come back to sit down with her, and she starts telling me about losing her mom just about 2 years earlier. And that voice in the bathroom was telling me, I am not your mom, but I am somebody's mom. And I like need you to be her mom or something like that. Like it was something about being mom. And all of a sudden I sit down and she starts telling me the story about her mom. And of course I have goosebumps now because my friend's mom is with us. But I grew up like Hispanic. I mean, I'm Hispanic. So I kind of like felt like it was always okay to talk to like past loved ones. But when I started to open these gates, they started to show up, and without me like being like, oh, I want to talk to my grandmother who passed away. Like this was just random. And I was like, oh, I like something's happening. And I just started to realize that that there's these like beings, these other energies, whether it's a past loved one or it's a spirit guide that you have lived another lifetime with. Like I just started to understand that there's like souls. There's a difference, like we are souls within a human body, but then there's also souls that are not in a human body that are around us that we can connect to. And I got super interested in that. And there was so much information when you start to be able to like connect to past loved ones, basically.
So, it's funny because like right when we just started talking, you asked me about like, now that I have my girl, do I feel complete? And it's so funny because I have always really viewed my children as not like as very separate from myself, and like that they are not of me, that they are not. They're of me because they came from my body, but their soul is like found its way to me, their ways to me. And so like when I think about how I want to raise my children, obviously I'm a regular mom who has my own temper tantrums, and I am not the perfect parent, and I'm learning along the way. But like I try to view my kids as like very separate from me in that they are not beneath me. They are not above me. They're simply like a separate soul that has been on this earth at this particular stage for less time, and it is my duty to like help them through that because they have fallen under my umbrella of life.
Nikki, that's so beautiful to like, you have all the understandings, like there's words for what you're saying, but like that's so beautiful. Number one, I think that's a big gift that our generation brings to the table. Like we are finally understanding that our children might have the brain of a human 3-year-old, but their soul can be older than us. And I mean, I think also, speaking about spirit guides and soul, whatever souls, like there's so many versions of it, even spirit babies. So like, I know for you, Nikki, like when you were getting pregnant with your daughter, like probably was, for most people be like, why would you be doing that? Like, you're already struggling or you're having, you're going through this thing. And you knew, like, you were like, there is a baby girl. She's supposed to come through me.
I knew she was a girl before I knew she was a girl.
Exactly. And that is because the spirit baby will often come to people before it's even time. Spirit babies will even come before you're even like in a relationship. Like my son Oliver gave me his name when I was like in my early 20s at a party. I remember the moment that like the name, now that I'm intuitive, I can go back and remember all these moments. But I didn't, so our spirit babies come and we don't, it's hard to tell the age of a soul. Once you start to learn like colors and start to see colors around people, based off colors, you can tell the age of a soul. But like so many of us are birthing these like super old souls, and we don't want to raise them thinking like, I am mom, you are child. Like we really want to tap it. That's why I love this work, like the work that I do. Like it's super cool to do a reading, of course, and super cool to like do all this intuitive stuff. But at the end of the day, like I can see my family, I can see everybody as a soul, and it helps me move through the world and actually know that, like you said, Nikki, like our kids come here with their own purpose, and we are here to help them live into that purpose. But sometimes that purpose might mean them leaving us or like whatever. So we have to like learn to respect that.
Hold the phone, you guys. I want to take a break so I can tell you all about Cinderfit, my new best friend in the gym. Okay, so it's no secret, I work out like a lot, and I work out in a lot of different ways because, well, I like to keep things exciting and new and fresh and different. Enter the Cinderfit block. Listen, I am pretty strong, physically and emotionally, duh. And these blocks come in a range of weights that I'm using to add some versatility to my workouts. There's a lot that goes into my thought process when I'm making purchasing decisions. Everything in my home and my life has to be functional. If it doesn't have a function, I don't want it. But I think it's also no secret that I'm really into aesthetics. I like things to also look nice. So I love that Cinderfit has created a stylish, design-oriented, and functional product. Basically, it's like a gym in a block. I don't know if y'all saw, but I stacked my 15 and 25-pound blocks in my home gym, and they're actually like pretty and functional. So I love them. I've been sumo squatting, deadlifting, bicep curling, mountain climbing. Like the workout, obviously, no, I'm not climbing any literal mountains in Miami. I've been tricep dipping, Russian twisting, and I can even attach resistance bands to these bad boys and do all kinds of resistance training with them. I'm having fun, seriously. I also love that Cinderfit has all kinds of supplemental videos on their site, so I can get a high-intensity training workout in, some sculpting, and even some flow-based inspiration when I need it. Whether you are a beginner or you're doing advanced workouts, you're going to be able to use the Cinderfit block, and I'm not even kidding you guys, it can easily replace all of your workout equipment. You know, I've got the hookup and I love to share all my great finds with you guys. So for a limited time, you'll be able to get free shipping on these heavy bad boys with my code NikkiSpo when you order your Cinderfit block at www.cinderfit.com. Summer is coming. I legit think of Game of Thrones every time I say that. You know, when they say like winter is coming in Game of Thrones, and I think it's like a thing. Well, here in Miami, summer is coming and we need to get ready, folks. Go to cinderfit.com and order yours like right now. I want to take a minute to thank our sponsors, Sana Skin Studio. The best way for me to describe Sana is that it feels like coming home. Unlike traditional facials, Sana's facials are rooted in education, and I love this so much. Every experience I've had at Sana has been a chance to learn more about my skin and its needs. I love that the facials are effective while also being accessible enough to be a monthly ritual rather than a yearly splurge. I'm honored to be able to provide our audience with a promo code. Use the code THENOGLOW for $25 off of your first facial at Sana when booking via sanaskinstudio.com. So I want to talk about like how you can teach this to people, because like first of all, I mean, I want to take your classes because I do feel like I've been intuitive my whole life myself. Like I really do. And I've been, for personally, I have, and I'm saying this because I think a lot of people do this. Like they think, they feel, they know something, they have a knowing, and it's written off as like crazy or
Judgmental,
dramatic, whatever it is. And so we suppress it. And so I know firsthand that I have suppressed a lot of my deep inner knowing for many, many years, you know, like because it was uncomfortable or it didn't make me feel good, or I was scared of what I would really realize about myself if I listened to my intuition. And so what happens with that, and the big problem I think with that, is that when we do that, we make ourselves untrustworthy.
right?
So it's
You
hard
lose
to build
self-trust.
personal trust when we ourselves are not trustworthy.
Right. You lose self-trust. And that is like the worst, that is actually why like actually being in a relationship with like a narcissist, let's say, is the most damaging thing of being in a relationship with somebody like that, whether it's your mom or your partner or whatever, is that it like strips away your intuition. It basically tells you you are crazy because the person has an agenda, you know, on the other side to make sure that like they are not found out, that they are not, you know, like they want to keep you like stuck and small so that they can keep doing whatever it is that they're doing. So the damage is to the intuition. And women in particular, I mean, men are super intuitive too. My husband, my kids are super intuitive, but women in particular, we have a very strong sense of intuition. So if you want to conquer us, just take our intuition away. First of all, like you kind of have to understand where your intuition's coming from. So I've mentioned a few times that I heard a voice. That's because I have a very strong sense of hearing. So a lot of my messages come from like a herd. Then of course, there's people that are very feelings based. So like you feel like,
I feel the energy of a person, even if their face is saying something, like I can feel a person besides what their face and their body language is saying. It has nothing to do with anything physical.
Exactly. So what you're doing is like the energy that they're giving off, you're taking it into your body and then you're translating it. So here, and then there's also some intuitive people, well, all of us who, are different intuitions, some of it comes through downloads. And those are funny because, which you would call claircognizant, because the downloads, what that ends up doing is it makes people like seem judgmental. So I don't know if you, Nikki, or if anybody else, like, you're like, oh my gosh, like, why are you judging that person? You're like, dude, I just know that person's an asshole. Or like, and it may come off as judgmental, but it's actually, that's the way I'm not giving everybody free range to be a judgmental asshole or anything like that. But I do want you to know that you might have been labeled as like judgy because of the way your intuition comes in. But it's really because you have a knowing and it comes very quickly. It just downloads into your mind. So it's kind of confusing because you're like, where did that information come from? And maybe I am being judgmental. And then that's why you don't listen to it because you don't have any like backing of it. So it is important first to understand how your intuition comes through. Some of you too, maybe when you're writing, you notice that like you're channeling, like that information is coming through too. So some of you have like a journaling practice or are writers or musicians. That's also a form of like receiving your intuition. So once you like know how you're bringing in your intuition, you'll let yourself believe, like listen to yourself a little bit more. So Nikki's saying, I'm feelings based. Okay, when she feels something, she has to pay attention to it. Like she knows that that's how it comes through to her. So she has to stop and like ask herself, okay, like what's happening here? And then the second thing is like, so what's happening with intuition is that there is energy around us. Everything is energy. Nikki's energy, I'm energy. Like your dog is energy. The room has energy. Even, and if you want to go beyond that, your grandmother who passed away has energy. So there's so much energy. And basically as an intuitive, what you're doing is that you have learned to hold focus on these energies and receive the information. So Nikki's saying, if I'm talking to somebody and I can see they're facing something else and they're whatever, but what she's doing is she's holding focus on somebody's energy in that moment. She might be using their eyes to hold focus. And in that focus, in that presence, she is receiving information. So like as a professional intuitive, which is what I do now, all I'm doing is like, okay, Nikki's coming to me. Okay, great. Let me close my eyes. Let me read Nikki's energy. Let me read the energy of all the people around her. I can read the energy of her past lives. So it's really like a practice of holding focus and letting yourself receive the information in the way that you receive it.
If you're teaching people, because you have your courses, how do you teach people to do that?
Yeah, so it's like baby steps, basically. It's and it's a lot of like visuals and like games. And also what's interesting about intuition is that when I teach people intuition, a few things, and we talked about this in the beginning, like, I mean, the truth is like the reason I got into intuition with that lady after the reason I asked that question after getting, dumped was because I was really like trying to make sure I never made a mistake again. Like that is why I got interested in intuition, because I was like, hold up, like my intuition brought me here, didn't work out. Like, let's fix this thing. And so people come for intuition for that reason. But like we were saying in the beginning, actually intuition is not, it's not about knowing everything. It's not about like knowing every move. And like, there's so much mystery and intuition. And I would say that intuition is more about, intuition is the voice of your soul. So like the reason we're developing that relationship is because we're trying to hear our truth, and our soul communicates through our intuition. So if we really want to live a soul-led life where we're like following, we talked about raising our kids as souls. Like if we want to live that way, we have to have like a telephone to intuition, because that's the telephone to the soul. Because in this lifetime, we are mind, body, and soul, right? We have a body, we have a mind, but we also have a soul. We are these spiritual beings living this like very human life. So we're trying to connect to that. So that's why we study it, not to like get everything right, not about, that would be like the ego's use of intuition. And that's actually us like conquering our own intuition in many ways. I would let you guys know that like intuition is synonymous with curiosity. because
Oh, I love that.
it's like a curious energy. So basically, like you're being like, huh, like you're almost like, I wonder what the truth is here, is basically what you're looking for. Like if you would, like if Nikki would just listen to that person that had like a facial expression and a body language that was saying one thing, her actual intuition is like curious and being like, huh, I wonder if that's like really true. Is there something else here? Like there's basically intuition's like kind of asking questions.
Yeah.
And that is how she's like able to get to the answers, because she's kind of like, huh, I don't know. I don't know if this is like it. Like, I feel like there's something more here. So it really is a curious energy. So as you study intuition, as you practice your own intuition, you really want to take it with curiosity. Basically, like all I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get people to focus on energy so they can read it. Everything has energy. Even future possibilities have energy. So let's say you're stuck on like a decision. You have like two choices to make. I could go back to my corporate job, or I can start my own business, or I can send my kids to this school, or I can send them to this, whatever. So you have two choices. So basically you can do like a little exercise where you close your eyes. So if you guys have any, you can have more than two, but maybe let's if you have two or three, but basically you're going to close your eyes and you're going to see paths. So you're going to say like, path number 1 is keep my corporate job. Path number 2 is, start this business I've been wanting to whatever. And you're going to see these paths like as roads, like streets that you're walking down, and you're going to see yourself like a little avatar, and you're going to walk down road number 1. So like you're just trying to hold your focus on this path. And basically now, so I'll let you guys do that for a second. See if you're getting, what does path 1 feel like? How do you feel? Is it dark? Is it light?
So there's no right or wrong answer in these questions. Like, we're not judging the answers, right? I think it's really important to like pay attention to that, is that we're not judging the answers, because even me, like when I'm doing this, I pretended I had a corporate job, which I don't. But I'm like, I walked myself down a path of like a corporate job, and I was like instinctively just like, no.
Right.
No.
And maybe you felt tight. Maybe you felt
like, yeah, I felt like my shoulders were coming together, and I was like, no, this is not it. Well, okay, that's fine, because I don't have a corporate job, and there's probably a reason for that. So that's why I'm so averse to like imagining that. But I think it's important to remind,
but for some people that might be great.
Yeah, right. We're not judging that. We're observing. We're taking like stock of the information that we're presented to with our feelings and the way that we're like visualizing that.
Nikki, perfect word, observing. Like that's the word, like you're just going down the energy. So basically what we did with that, and then you'll do the same thing with the second, guys. So like we'll walk down the second. Does it feel tight? Does it feel bright? What does it feel like? And like Nikki said, we're not looking for the right answer. We're looking for the answer that is true to your soul, like true to you. So it's not about right or wrong. It's about truth. And that's what we're using our intuition for. And then what we did with this is that the option of you working that corporate job, or, like taking that, making your own business, these are future possibilities. So they exist, they're energies, but they are in the future. So what we're doing is we're grabbing future information, future energy, and we're like giving it a little visual, because that visual is what helps us hold the focus. And then, because it's nothing, it's just energy, but we're giving it like a street and, whatever. And then with the street, we hold the focus and we receive the information. If you had a pen and paper, some of you could probably even get more information. Nikki's very feelings based, so she could like feel right away, no. But if you had a paper, you might even be able to get more. And what you want to do is like, when you're holding that focus, what's important is that the information is coming from like the top of your head, right? Like it's dropping into your head, it's dropping into your body. But because our brain is the first thing that's there, that's underneath our third eye center and our crown chakra, these are the intuitive centers are on the top of our body. What we're doing is that we might judge what's coming through. So depending on how strong like your inner critic is and how much judgment, even like your religious beliefs, right? Like there are times that I'm doing something, even till this day, that I'm like, Nikki, you are full of shit. Like you are full of shit. Because
she's talking about herself.
Yeah, talking about myself. Sorry, not Nikki, you, Nikki. Like I'm talking to myself being like, I'm full of shit, because I've been programmed for so many years.
Yes.
That like, it doesn't matter. Like the fact that I have a wait list of over 1,000 people that want to talk to me, there's still the little girl in me was raised by this mother who makes me feel like this is all wrong.
The pre-programming. And
Exactly.
Nick, I want to touch on something in like the societal programming too. It's like, I think like we talked about our generation, like our generation is reprogramming everything.
Yes.
Like we're dismantling the patriarch. We're asking men to step up, and as women, we're collectively healing.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
that doesn't, oh yeah, we're all healing. No, what? Like there is societal generational programming that is part of this.
Yeah, listen, like this, remember guys, if you go back, and I am not anti-Christian. I love Christianity. I like, my kids have been baptized. Like I love Jesus, but the religion of Jesus is not Christianity. Jesus was just this, this preacher, and his message was taken over for power. So like Christianity, like, is this institution. And if women all of a sudden, or anybody really, start having their own, experiences and their intuitions and all these things, like that all gets dismantled. And there's so much in the Bible that is there to control us. Even though there's so many beautiful things in the Bible, there are humans that take the Bible in the wrong way and use it to control. So like, imagine, like, nobody wants us to be doing these practices because it's like against this institution.
For me, that came, a lot of that intuition, I started listening to my intuition when I started clearing my head from alcohol, right? Like I was so upset for whatever reason and hurt and like because of, for all the reasons, right? But once I started to get clear, I was like, oh, I hear and I feel and I can see these things. And I have a lot of intuitive friends like that have told me the more they stepped into their intuition, the less substance they ever wanted to use, also because it clouds their relationship with their intuition.
Well, what's funny with addicts, my husband's in recovery, is that we, like addicts, are the most sensitive people. That's why they need the substance to like deal with this world that is messed up.
I relate to that. Yeah.
So like, if you had any of that abuse, you are most likely super, super intuitive because you are very, very sensitive. Like if you're sensitive, you're receiving all the information. Like your intuition is just not trained yet, and it's very overwhelming. So
Totally.
You need something to like shut off your brain, and so you will find those things. So it's like, yeah, the more sensitive we are. And then I would say that the more you get into your intuition, you realize your sensitivities, and then like everything just feels like too much. Even coffee might feel like too much and things like that. So that's definitely part of the process.
I need to just quit coffee this month for 30 days.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. By the way,
you'll probably find like interesting parts of yourself.
Yeah, definitely. So what do you give us a couple of keys for our listeners, the keys to building the intuition and self-trust? Like, how do we get there? What are the steps that we can take?
Yeah, definitely. A meditation practice would be great, guys. I know that most of us don't like meditation. We don't like to sit down on a pillow.
I consider myself like somewhat intuitive, or I'm tapping into it, and I'm learning and I'm developing it, but I hate meditating. Like, I don't like it. I don't like how I feel. And in some way, Nikki, and I'm not trying to hijack your statement here, but I'm like, it forces me to like face the things.
Right.
When I meditate, I'm like, oh, this is coming up. This is coming up. I'm supposed to silence my brain, and this is all coming up.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's part of why I don't want to do it.
It's hard. But the thing is, like, when you're meditating, guys, like, and you can do like walking meditations, all that kind of stuff. I actually like doing the intuitive practice because it's like, it's all guided meditations. So it's keeping my brain busy. I'm like, okay, we looked at the path and now we're going to look at a rainbow, and we're going to like, so that helps me not have to. So if you don't like meditation, try guided meditations. You can go like on any of these apps or on YouTube. But the reason for the meditation is because intuition and reading energy is all about putting your focus on the energy. So when we sit down and meditate and our brain goes nuts, we are just having like a lack of focus. Like basically we're focusing to like on like the brain just going off, as opposed to like finding focus. So if you are meditating, you want to be like, okay, I'm just going to focus on my breath, like in and out, or I'm going to focus. And that focus trains your brain to like hold just a little bit of focus on energy. And eventually you can hold focus. Like, I can hold my focus for an hour now on energy and receive information. I wasn't like that always. And I would say like, it's crazy. Like you definitely need to get sharper, like as you learn to hold your focus. So I'm grateful for that. So that's an annoying thing, but at least like some quiet time, guys. If you can't do meditations, like journal, like there has to be quiet time in your space, like nature, walks, anything. You need some quiet time for it to even like show up.
Yeah.
So that's important. And then what I was going to say is that, like, you were just talking about some of your friends that are intuitive. I think a lot of us think like, oh, okay, I'm doing intuition, I have to get it right, and I'm trying to prove myself. Yeah. But the truth is, you actually need validation to be able to get stronger. So the reason like my intuition is so strong is because I've read so many people, and so many people have told me like, oh my God, Nikki, that was so accurate. And when they tell me that it's accurate, I'm like file folding and like building like trust in my own intuition. So like, if you like, you can totally like play games, like if you're into cards or tarot or just with your friends, like my husband and I love to do this game that I'm like, okay, Benny, look at me in the face. Tell me what's going on. And he'll like read my energy, but he's holding his focus on my face. And just like, I'm like, oh yeah, that was good. Like, that's totally right. Like just a silly game. My girlfriends and I will play games like, okay, I'm going to ask you a question, like first response, like first intuitive hit. And you're not allowed to like judge or, overanalyze my question. So those are all like fun games because your friends will give you feedback, and let yourself be like, okay, can I read you? Like, can I tell you what I think is coming through? It's hard sometimes with friends and family because we have like our judgments, but if you're being curious,
experiences of them.
Yeah. But if you're being like curious and just be like, I don't know why I'm getting this, or like, it's a little bit more fun, you'll be able to get into that flow and just ask them if it feels accurate for them. And that's how you start to develop. And then of course, when you follow your intuition and it works out, file folder that. Like, be like, when you think about taking a leap, when you're thinking about like, I really feel like I'm being called to go here, go back to all the times that feeling worked and like that it worked out for you. Like, you have to build like your resume of like why you are trustworthy. And then if you've lost your trust, to really go through a process of forgiveness. I really believe in this. So like, you can do like a little ritual. You can get like a rock and bury it somewhere and just be like, I'm like releasing all like my, all of the times that I've like disowned myself or, like not listened to myself. Like, I love you. I release you. I'm sorry. We're going to do better. And that gives you also a clean slate, because we want to eliminate like the doubt, because the doubt is like, oh, you're the one that did this and did that and blah, blah, blah. We really want to work on silencing that voice, because your intuition's there, but it's not going to scream. It's not going to talk over the anxiety. It's not going to talk over your coffee jitters. It's not going to fight. Like, it's not going to fight the self-doubt. Like, she's chill. Like, she doesn't need to prove herself. So that's why she's harder to hear than all the other noise, because they're like assholes, like just trying to make themselves seen. So like, she's not going to talk over that. So we have to work on letting that have less of a seat in our life.
So while you were talking, these are some of the things I wrote down, like some of the steps, right? You're encouraging a meditation practice, and at the very least, having quiet time, like set aside for yourself. And I feel like a big part of these steps is the validation, which encompasses, right, a couple of things, right? We're talking about you have to be willing to learn, and then applying what you learn and receiving the affirmation for what you've learned, but then also like file and stocking your trustworthiness.
Exactly.
Like calling back on the experiences in which you have been able to be trustworthy towards yourself, and trust your feelings and be able to act on them, and just remembering like how those times worked for you.
Right. And then if you are struggling with that, forgiveness, like really bring forgiveness.
Is big.
Yeah.
I'm going to have a bunch of rocks buried in my backyard pretty soon.
A rock burial ceremony.
A burial ceremony, forgiving myself for all the ways I've abandoned myself in the past. And I think a lot of us have done that. Like there's so many instances in which we've abandoned ourselves on tiny, tiny, tiny scales, and then like really big, damaging ones too. And I think a lot of it requires forgiveness. I always say, Nikki, that I think that forgiveness is bigger than love. And I get like some pushback on that, But I really do. I think that love is a very pure feeling and experience. But I think forgiveness is like a next level powerhouse feeling and action that doesn't get as much respect as it should in society.
Like, I really feel that. Like, I think you're completely correct. Like, it's forgiveness is like, it's like a subcategory of love because it requires love to forgive.
Exactly.
But it is like love when you don't want to love.
Yes.
And that's why it's harder when you
or
don't.
especially like when you're forgiving somebody who isn't even sorry.
Right.
Like you pass a judgment that they're not worthy of the forgiveness, but forgiveness isn't about who is being forgiven. It's about yourself.